Visionaries, we get a bad rap, that we're always distracted, chasing shiny stuff, maybe a little ADHD. But the reality is, it's not really just a visionary problem. It's an integrator problem too, because it's really a human problem that has been around since the beginning of time. In fact, Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, was writing in Meditations. And if you read Meditations, it's basically him talking to himself. And he writes in meditation, concentrate like a Roman. Focus at the task at hand, doing it gently, precisely, willingly, without distraction. And so it is something that's just been around since the beginning of time. It is completely and utterly human that we live distracted lives. In fact, from the year 2000 to now, we started out at 12 seconds of attention. So we can hold our attention for about 12 seconds. That's why a few people have already left, because those visionaries got bored. Sorry. But now we're just about 8 seconds. So we can hold our attention for approximately 8 seconds. And so in other words, we are just doomed because we have all these distractions in our lives all day, every day. And by the way, we've evolved past a goldfish, which has an attention span of 9 seconds. So congratulations. You can't really hold your attention very much. And what I want to frame here is that in business and in life, distraction is the enemy. And I think this is a great quote by Eric Hoffer, who wrote a book called True Believer. And he said, mass movements can rise and spread without the belief in a God, but never without belief in a devil. And you can look all throughout history and you'll see this exact same thing. And to me, the devil is distraction. It is taking you off focus. It is diminishing your ability to get what you want from your business, to get what you want from your life. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Because we here at EOS Worldwide, we are no different than anyone else, and we lose focus and we get distracted just like everybody else. So with that, going a little bit into our history. So Kelly and I are going to share our story here at EOS Worldwide, and give you a little bit of the history, and then hopefully help you learn from our story and get a little bit more of what you want from your business. So you see here, Gino Wickman, he's our founder. I call him a modern day monk. Like what you see him wearing on that picture, I guarantee he's wearing the same thing right now. No matter where he is in the world, he's wearing that. I think his closet looks precisely the same. So he's this modern day monk. He's highly focused. And that's what was baked into our company from the beginning. Of course, no one's perfect. Everyone loses focus, just like anyone. But that's how we got started. So Gino is an obsessive person, hyper-focused, and we started out with this simple logo. So EOS Worldwide, we did one thing and one thing only. We developed master EOS implementers all day, every day. And those EOS implementers helped leadership teams, one leadership team at a time, break through the ceiling and get what they want from their business. But somewhere along the line in 2018, we started to lose some focus. And so we went from this one little logo to that. What could go wrong? I mean, absolutely nothing. And so some of you might be saying, oh, that looks like a lot of success. You grew, and now you have all these things. Kelly called it our product and portfolio explosion. And the reality is that we, just like every other business that we work with, started to lose focus. And we're going to tell you a little bit why, how that started to creep in, how we started to lose focus.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. So it wasn't because we forgot to take our daily dose of Adderall, okay? We really began to come up with a lot of great ideas. We were selling ourselves on great ideas, and you see the air quotes there. And that's because we as humans, we tend to rationalize and justify a lot of things. And look at our core focus. It's a tool that we teach that helps us to stay laser focused so that we can avoid the shiny stuff. But Mark, we got pretty good at justifying all kinds of really good ideas.
Oh, if there's one thing that I have belief in, is that people can rationalize nearly everything.
That's right.
Yep.
And we just about did. In fact, a lot of really good ideas are taught by business schools, the best places all over the world. Things like maximizing wallet share and increasing lifetime value and leveraging relationships like that between the EOS implementer and an end user. We can do product portfolio explosions, and we can go everywhere in the marketplace rather than focusing right on our own target market right in front of ourselves. And let's talk about scaling. Scaling and maximizing the scaling. And Mark, if I see one more LinkedIn posting on scaling, even if you've written it or I've written it, I don't know what I might do. I might throw my computer away or something like
In
that.
a bucket, yep.
Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that causes a tremendous amount of market confusion and also a lot of distraction and confusion on our teams when we do this. And it comes at a cost, Mark, right? It's not a net sum zero. So when we get distracted by trying to do everything for everyone and be everything to everybody and corner every piece of the market, we actually lose our focus. That confusion and distraction costs us a whole lot. And it's not just visionaries and integrators, but it actually impacts our teams and the marketplace as a whole. And so this is very human. We want to tell you more about this story and how we went further into this. But the distraction of it, Mark, is that, it's all pervasive and no one is immune to it.
No one at all. And what we want to talk about is to take a little bit of a deeper dive into our history, to show you what the cost of that loss of focus is. And many of you might be thinking, well, what about innovation? What about, expanding our product and growing our revenue? You're going to grow your revenue, but you got to do it in a way that is absolutely focused and according to your core focus. We're going to talk about the tool, the back to the basics tool that we used to get back to the basics. But just think of it in terms of your innovation is about doing the same thing, just better, faster, cheaper. And so what's implicit in that is simplicity, right? You are breaking everything down to serve your customers just better, faster, cheaper, better, faster, cheaper. It's not about adding complexity and all those different things. It's about breaking it down to be as simple as possible. So before we do that and we go into the back to the basics, we're going to go a little bit deeper into our history. So again, we were founded by Gino Wickman in the year 2000. And he began tinkering with all kinds of different tools. So he read all the books. There was at one point over 1,000 tools were tested in the EOS process. And his objective was to get it down to the simplest set of tools that produce the most amount of impact in the least amount of time. So just this relentless elimination of complexity. So he worked with 50 clients. I actually met one of them that started with him in 1999. I mean, they were like, hey, we are the guinea pigs, and this was an adventure. So he started working with these 50 clients. It was actually called the Business Accelerator Model and Process at the time. I mean, just a terrible name. And so he just kept working. So then that leads up to 2007. He gets a co-founder, Don Tinney, who is the first integrator at EOS Worldwide. And they begin to recruit new implementers to take this system that was proven over all those years, pulling the levers to make the biggest amount of impact in the least amount of time. So in then 2007, Gino self-published Traction. And there's a funny story with that. He writes the book, he hands it to Don for review, and he's like, that's terrible. No one is going to buy this book. So over 3 million copies later, Don's a believer. He thinks that the book is pretty good. So then at that same year, EOS Worldwide is founded. And then Gino, ever the planner, he had a 5-year plan to effectuate his succession. So by 2015, Mike Payton becomes the second visionary of EOS Worldwide. He replaces Gino. Gino goes in the owner's box. And then we have Payton and Don. And then Kelly will take it from here.
That's right. So things were going along pretty nicely at this point. And then in August of 2016, I joined EOS Worldwide really as part of the succession plan that Mark is describing. Peyton had come in. I was brought in to be his missing puzzle piece integrator. The three-part puzzle, as we talk about with Rocket Fuel, is the visionary, the integrator, and then the business. So I was brought in to really fulfill their promise and hope of this succession plan. Now, it was pretty interesting because it was only 9 months after I had been hired that Gino said, now's the time. We're going to go to the marketplace. We're going to get an investment banker that's going to take us out. I want to take some chips off the table and pass on the baton to someone else, and he was going to go pursue other passions. And so we did. We went out and we got an investment banker. We went out to the marketplace, and we sold the company in record time. Now, remembering that really EOS was a small giant, meaning that we were designed to be having low revenue but high profitability. And at the time of the sale, we were about 60% profit margin. Now we get to the closing table, and I'm sitting there literally next to Gino, and he issues a warning. He says, you are going to want to leverage this organization and the relationship between an implementer and their client. You're going to lose focus. You're going to do all kinds of things that are going to cause distraction, and you're going to erode those profit margins from 60% down to nothing. He was right. 6 months later, it started the first of 8 acquisitions that would come afterwards. Now, you can see here, it didn't erode down to nothing. But for every acquisition, for every distraction, it's continually eroded little by little by little those profit margins until it was last summer in 2024, Mark and I looked at each other and we said, enough is enough. And we aren't going to do this anymore. We're going back to the basics. And that is where we continue the story for you to see how this is very human, as Mark said. We are just like you. We are EOS Worldwide. We teach this for a living, and even we lose focus. You're going to lose focus if you haven't already too, but it's what you do about it. We have an operating system and a set of EOS tools that help us to make our way out of these things. Hopefully we prevent losing focus. That's part of our goal here today, but if you do, it's not the end. There is a path forward using the system that we've been talking about today, all day today. That's the really good news. All right. So, Mark, talk a little bit about our core focus. That was really important to us. It still is very important to us. And at the time, you can see this is our VTO, literally our VTO. We put it up here for you to see. Let's talk about the core focus and the niche.
So before we do that, I think it's important to take you to that moment in time where we realized something has gone horribly wrong. We came to a point in time where, and if you know me and implementers and people in the EOS world, we really exist to help other people get what it is that they want. I've said it quite a few times here today. And in 2023, in the summer of 2023, Kelly gives me a call on a Saturday, which doesn't happen very often.
And I never call you on a Saturday.
You never do.
No.
Which is good. She calls me and she's like, hey, I think 2026 is the time where we need to do a recapitalization. We need to figure out a way to give some investor money back and change out our ownership. So 2026, that's the date. We've got to have it done by 2026. And at the same time, our chairman said, hey, well, 2026, that's good, but here's the number. And so in my mind, up until that point, I had the date and I had the value that we needed in order to get that transaction done. And it was a year later in a board meeting. So right before the board meeting, I went out on a walk with our finance leader. We were in Sonoma, California. We were just walking around. There's a little square there. We were walking outside. And we built software, and part of that portfolio explosion, we built software. We were doing all sorts of different things, as you saw in the portfolio explosion. And it was not growing as fast as we would want to in order to achieve 2026 and at the dollar number that we wanted. And I'm just walking around with the finance leader, and his name is Ben. I said, Ben, I just see no path to get what it is that we want. There's just no path. We can't do it. And so I go into that board meeting pretty depressed, like a little mopey, a little Eeyore, if you know Eeyore. And one of our board members said, hey, just so we are clear, the multiples of a franchise business have now eclipsed the multiples of a software company and technology company. And all of a sudden the clouds parted and the angels started singing, and I became a little bit happier. And I'm like, we have a path. We can do this. We can achieve the number, and we can do it in 2026. So that after the board meeting, Kelly and I went out for a walk through the mountains, and we began the planning. We began thinking about, well, how would we accomplish the goal? How would we get what we want? We have 27 stakeholders that we're trying to work with all day, every day, and help them all get what they want. And so Kelly and I had that conversation, but that wasn't the beginning, because if you're familiar with the visionary and integrator relationship, visionary's like, yeah, let's go do this stuff and it's going to be done tomorrow, and tomorrow's too late. Kelly had to process it and bring it down to reality. We can't just go do this tomorrow, because we knew that we probably would need to let 40 people go during that transition. And we wanted to get out of the software business, but our board wasn't ready yet. Our team wasn't ready yet. And so Kelly, tell us how you took on that process and trying to figure out how.
Right. So that was a really big monumental board meeting. So we leave, that's July of last year. And 1 month later, I'm on a planned vacation with my family in Tuscany, in Italy, and we're having a really great time. And I'm also, though, decompressing, thinking, processing, as Mark said, taking clarity breaks. And I was reading a book. Now, the interesting thing about this book is I just literally threw it in my bag as I was packing and we were getting ready to go on our trip. It was not planned. It was just reading material, just throw it in the bag. Now, this becomes important because the name of the book is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And the contents of the book are really about the life and the teachings of Jesus. Now, you don't need to believe what I believe with Jesus. It really is to get, with the story I'm about to tell is about my mindset at the time. So the book is about this walk of Jesus and how he walked so deliberately with everything that he did. He never hurried, never rushed, always very impactful. Everywhere he went, he was very present. He was there. He was engaged. And it struck me because if you knew my mindset before I left on vacation, I was every bit hurry. Every bit hurry. There was nothing peaceful about the way that I was feeling. And so this book resonated with me in such a deep way that I actually texted Mark and I said, Mark, here's the cover of this book. And of course, Mark, he's a quick start, so he orders it on Amazon and he reads it within less than 24 hours, I think, or something.
I'm a 10 quick start if you know Colby. So if you know that, and maybe I shouldn't have just said that out loud, you can basically make me do anything.
Which is very good. I use that to my advantage a lot of times, yes. So he reads it and I'm reading the book and we're very much apart and from a distance perspective, but we're texting one another. And so what it comes down to is this human energy component I am processing as the integrator, and the speed and the pace at which we were moving and how it was impacting the team, my team at EOS Worldwide and our implementer community, by all of the haste and all of these product portfolio explosion and all of the software and everything we were doing. And it hit me here. It hit me in the heart, how much I really needed to go back when I got home and we needed to change everything. Because as goes the visionary integrator, so goes the leadership team. As goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the entire organization. So that responsibility and obligation as the integrator to do the right thing and serve the greater good. Anybody who may have read the People book, the greater good means every word of the VTO needs to be honored, multiplied by genuine care and concern, otherwise known as love, putting the love into the work. And so it was in processing this, Mark, this human energy, love component, greater good, that it hit me here that there's nothing else we could do but to move forward and make the really tough calls. Really tough calls, letting go of 38 people in a singular day, and letting go of products, and letting go of workshops, and selling off our software company, all because of the greater good. So we were processing that, but so I'm getting there. I'm getting to where I'm ready, okay? The integrator has the readiness to take on I know
Yeah.
I'm catching up with you. And so I'm ready to come back. And so we say, it's funny, there is this tool that we use at EOS because the answer is always in the tools,
Yep.
as Walt Brown says,
Yeah.
and it's the back to the basics checklist.
Right.
That's the how. So when we define what we want, then we define the how.
That's right.
Okay.
And with the core focus, sort of circling back to where we started here, is that core focus is intended to be the filtering and guiding mechanism to keep you laser focused versus distracted by shiny stuff. And as Kelly said, we were able to really justify that all these things were inside of our core focus. And so what you see here is our current core focus of helping entrepreneurs live their ideal lives or their EOS life. And are doing that through our niche, or niche, depending on where you're from, developing master EOS implementers. And so we reverted back to this as our North Star in order to make much, much better decisions as an organization. And then we had to get all the human energy in our business aligned and driving towards that North Star.
Right, so one of the tools that we have is called the human energy model. Some of you may be familiar with this. And on the left-hand side, this is where we have arrows going in all different directions. This is where we have humans who don't understand the vision. It's really chaotic. We have energy going in all different directions. We want to move towards where we have all of the arrows, all people, 100% of right people, right seats, rowing in the same direction towards a unified vision and core values. And so that took me to, as I was again processing all of the change, it took me to the VTO and everything that is on the vision side, the core values, core focus, marketing strategy, the 3-year picture, all of it on there. And then also traction, how do we get there? The 1 year, the 90-day rocks, and then the long-term issues list. And so it's thinking through that the human energy model is the mechanism by which leaders can take right people in the right seats and get everybody aligned towards that unified vision. And anybody who doesn't participate in that, who doesn't share your vision and core values, they've got to go. Right.
And that's a continuous refining process. It's not a once and done. You have to always be working really, really hard to get all those arrows pointing in one direction. It's very, very difficult. It's totally worth it. It'll help you break through the ceiling every time.
That's right. And that then takes us to the back to the basics checklist that you've heard Mark and I alluding to. This is a QR code for you to download. So this is not available on our website, actually. This is the first time that we've made this available. So do feel free to get that QR code. I'll also have it at the end for those of you that don't have your phones out at this time. But Mark, let's talk about back to the basics.
Yeah, back to the basics is a tool that you bring out when things are feeling a little off, you feel a little distracted, and you don't feel like journaling to yourself to remind yourself to concentrate. You just go back to the basics. And so it's just a simple checklist. You walk yourself through and you build an issues list while you're doing this, and then you can begin to take action. And so this is what we've been doing since that moment in time to just continue the process of going back to the basics. So the first question in going back to the basics is, when you're hitting the ceiling, you're stuck, frustrated, things are a little chaotic, you must master the 5 leadership abilities. I was thinking of quizzing you, but I don't want to embarrass your implementer. So the first is your ability to simplify, and so you're asking yourself the simple question, is everything here as simple as possible? Delegate. Are you or any of your people above capacity to do the job well? As Kelly said, just hurry, because everybody was over capacity. Predict. Short term, are you solving your issues during IDS for the long term and greater good? Systemize all your processes, documented, simplified, and followed by all. Is your structure, do you have the right accountability chart in place? So that's the first set of questions you want to ask yourself. So then the next yes or no actual check, is the more bringing that down to the ground, are all of your direct reports the right people in the right seats? And so, Kelly, you want to tell a story of how you did that on
Yes.
one fateful day?
That's right. So, as we're considering this, the answer is no, because one of the key issues was we had a leadership team member for whom there was a vision inside a vision, which is never healthy. And it's just like you must choose one, the EOS creed. You must choose one operating system. We must only have one vision. We can't have competing visions. Otherwise, we have that human energy model where energy is going to different directions. And so that individual is someone that we needed to let go along with that person's team because we had discontinued doing all of those other products and services. So that was the decision that was made as round one. And then round two was the realization that we really could not continue to be a software company. We are a training company at heart. We had to be honest with ourselves that we were not living our core focus, which is helping entrepreneurs live their US life. So we decided to sell the software off, which then meant some of those individuals, 18 more individuals, had to go as well. Very heartbreaking. It's one of the most challenging days I've ever had in my whole life, but that's the hard work that I know you integrators out there are doing every single day. And so that was the truth serum.
And the amount of courage that that takes is just tremendous. I mean, for Kelly to do that on one singular day because coming to the realization that you don't have the right people in the right seats. I mean, if I have one in my former life running my companies, not having an integrator, certainly not one as capable as Kelly, if I had one person who wasn't the right person, right seat, I'd be like, I don't really want to have this conversation. Like, maybe they'll turn out great 6 months from now. I'm sure it'll work. Of course, it never did. But the amount of courage that takes to do it with one person, let alone with 38 at a time, is just tremendous. So the next question with our Back to the Basics checklist: are all of your meetings healthy, productive, and necessary? And when you look at your calendar, you bring out your calendar, look at what you got going on for a month, you ask yourself, is this meeting necessary? Are all the participants in every meeting I'm in open and honest, and everyone is sharing all issues for the week? Just a high level of trust, smoking them all out, get them on the issues list. And 50% of every single meeting is spent solving issues. And issues, of course, are ideas, obstacles, barriers, really ultimately anything that is unresolved is an issue. And so you have that obsessive version of resolution. You got to resolve every open item to conclusion, put a tidy bow on it. And you're solving those forever. No duct tape and twine, where you're just pushing them off to the side and it later implodes on you. You got to solve them at the root forever.
And two quick things that I ended up doing here is really stripping everything back to the essentials. We had level 10s, same page meetings, quarterly conversations, and quarterlies and annuals. And all of the project management meetings and all of those were stripped away and done away with to go back to these core meetings. And that actually reduced the noise because we had less products to manage at any rate. And then the second one was to IDS better, faster, smoother, and having a lot more rigor around the quality of the IDS that we were having. No wasted time, solving things permanently, as you say.
Yeah. And we also had to separate our accountability chart into 3 different accountability charts. So we could actually have the right people in the room for each meeting. So all the right issues were in the right meeting. And so we've put that all back together since, but we had to break the business units apart in order to be able to see and surface those issues. So the next question is, do you and your people have enough time to do their job well? And so when you think about your 100%, maybe you're an 80-hour-a-week person, maybe you're a 30-hour-a-week person, whatever your definition of 100% is, if you're having to give more than that, people who used to be great are now not doing the job quite as well. Things are slipping through the cracks. Things that used to rely upon them to do just no longer occur. And so what you need to do then is figure out a way to free up your people so they can live within their 100%. No suck it up attitude, working 80 to 100 hours where you're wearing those hours like a badge of honor. It just doesn't last. It's not sustainable, and it builds a culture that you're not going to be proud of in the future. And so the tool we use there, which is if you're working with an implementer, it's in your leadership team manual called the assistance track. And we're not going to go through these tools specifically, but we went through the process of delegate and elevate, passing the stack, which is just how you work with people you're delegating to. Your daily meetings, little touch points during that time. We are meeting every single day. We kind of do anyway, but you're having those daily meetings, how you're working with your email, because that can be a source of distraction, and how you're running your schedule, making sure that every meeting there is absolutely necessary. And so the last piece of that, have you realized all the efficiencies in your processes, your procedures, how you're actually doing that? And so that's the next question for you.
Right. And so the last piece of that is when we redid the accountability chart, each seat has 5 roles. And so making sure that those 5 roles are that person's unique ability and capabilities and that it matches the capacity from the last question. And then also redoing all of our core processes. We rewrote all of them, documented them, shared them, got them followed by all. And that's where that efficiency really began to come in.
Yeah, because when you're running 3 separate business units all together in one clump, your processes that you've built for that, when you remove them, they no longer work. Or even when you add something, they don't work. And so you have to go through those processes and redo them and make sure that they're right size for the business that you are and grow along that path.
Right.
So the last question is, are you taking clarity breaks? And Kelly, this is really about that book, sort of a really deep exploration into living a life of a clarity break, right? I mean, that's really what that's about. Coming out from the fray, protecting your confidence.
That's right. And it's not a nice to have. So many people believe it's one of those things. When I eventually have time, it's not when you have time. That's the first thing you need to keep commitment to, other than same page meetings and the level 10s and all of that, but is to keep a commitment to yourself, because that is how you process working on the business. Even you integrators out there, you need clarity breaks too, maybe just as much as visionaries.
Probably more.
Yeah. So Mark, why are we sharing? So that was us talking about our journey up until now, and it's an ongoing process. But why are we vulnerably sharing the story now? And why here at the European EOS conference?
My hope for you all is that in our story, you can see yourself. And when you're tempted to go do a bunch of experiments and do things outside of your core focus, or even rationalize your core focus, that, oh yeah, that's within our core focus, totally, absolutely. And you're justifying that, you just have a little bit of a check to say, okay, is this really a part of our North Star? Does this really move the business forward? Does this erode our margins, or does it add to it? And so just ask those questions, and that's our hope for you. And also understand that distraction is a never-ending battle. It's human. It's been around since the beginning of time, and it'll be around until the end. And so that's what our hope is for you there.
Mm-hmm. So we will open this up for Q&A, and then know that at the end, we'll give you QR codes to connect with Mark and myself. We'd love to have 460 new friends join us. And also we'll show the back to the basics for anybody who didn't grab that QR code at the time too. So I think we've got a couple runners who are helping us with any questions that you may have. Yeah? Okay, we've got one runner over here. You can ask us literally anything we talked about here, or any other curiosities you might have about EOS.
Hi, thank you guys, amazing. You mentioned at the beginning you took a walk. Mm-hmm. Would that be like a micro clarity break? That was the first part of the question.
You could call it a micro clarity break or a micro rant while walking.
Yeah. But then I noticed you mentioned that both of you went on a walk.
Oh, later, yes,
yeah.
We did.
So is that, I mean, not to get too systematic about when we take walks, but obviously that helped. And is that a cultural thing that you guys feel like that's a normal?
We do that all the time.
I
think we went 6 or 7 miles yesterday.
Yeah. Walking, I mean, actually is shown in studies to get your brain activity and problem solving in place, but we just like to walk, so we just happen to do it for that reason, but it's very common, and we've worked a lot of things out on being together walking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly and Mark, for being so vulnerable about EOS's own story. I guess looking at the elephant in the room and entering the danger is one of our core values. How did it go on for so long at a leadership team level before you saw the need to turn things around? What was going on there, please?
Want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So as Kelly had said, is that in 2018, we were purchased by private equity, and we have a board that purchased the company with a prime directive, as Kelly talked about Gino at the closing table saying, you're going to want to do all these things. He already knew that they were going to want to do all these things, and they did. And so in a lot of ways, it was us as a VI duo running the team and also effectuating the demands of our board and our owners. And so we were in between there trying to bridge the gap. And so it did take quite a while until we had the body of data to prove that being focused would drive more value to them than experimenting on everything and everything.
It's also a really great testament to living in our truth. We had gotten to the point where we didn't feel good about what we were doing and the way that we could serve implementers, to serve you. I'm speaking to you directly. And so we simply put a line in the sand and said, if it costs us being the visionary integrator of EOS Worldwide, so be it. But we can't live inauthentically. And the thing that we know how to run this organization and we know how to do it well, and we just won't let anything compromise it anymore. And so it's, considered a breaking point, really, that we just wanted to do the right thing.
And in a lot of ways, you have to fail at all these good ideas in order for you to be able to move forward in a much more focused way. Because if you just refuse up front, in a lot of instances, people just say, well, if you would only have, like, well, we did, and we did a pretty good job at the execution of it. Our software, we were performing in the top 1% of all SaaS companies in terms of time to $1 million in annual recurring revenue. And so all the benchmarks, we were performing really well, and it wasn't enough because they weren't interested in running a business at a loss and funding it. And so all those different things, we executed quite well. But we had to do that in order to say, hey, look, we can actually get everybody what they want by being focused instead of distracted.
And one last point, and then we'll move on to whatever hands are out there. Mark and myself were passionate about running this
Right.
implementer-based business and helping entrepreneurs everywhere. We're not passionate about building software. We have licensed partners who are out here as sponsors for whom that's their core focus, and they're better able to do that. So we just really used the tools to come back to it, and we didn't lie to ourselves anymore. We just had the truth serum. So sometimes it's 1,000 paper cuts before you finally pull the trigger. And that's just being open and honest. Yeah.
Matt Smith from Shepherd Group. I'm the integrator for our business, and I'm doing the whole process thing right now, looking at our processes and trying to figure out what the most important ones are. So my question, this is kind of a selfish one, is how many core processes did you end up with when you did your version of this task? And have you got any tips on how you identified what those processes were, especially for the ones that weren't finance or HR or sales?
Mm-hmm.
So we just broke it down to the core essentials of the business that we were doing once we were calling it, I don't mean this flippantly, but when we put Humpty Dumpty back together again with the accountability chart, it really was focusing on what are the core, the top 10 to 12 processes that drive helping entrepreneurs live their EOS life. And so it was just focused on that core focus, and we met as a team and we agree on it. And then we go back and we rewrite everything. We look at some things as a point of reference, but much of it got rewritten because our framework of thinking about it exclusively versus having to weave in all of the other things that we had to do, those got taken away because you don't need those baton handoffs anymore. So you're removing those non-essential things that you've done away with.
So you took the core focus as the lens.
Yeah.
So you said, this process, does it help us reach our
That's
core
right.
focus? And if it doesn't, it's not a core process.
Right. And it also, as you go through that process, It also helps you to make sure you're not continuing to do some of the same mistakes you've made in the past, because if something doesn't fit through that lens, it's another way of saying maybe this is also something that we should discontinue doing. And so it's an iterative process over and over again. So when you're doing the accountability chart and the seats and then the scorecard and then attaching it to process, all three of those tie together. And Julia was talking about that actually just right before we came in here.
Great, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Two questions, actually. One is, what's happened to rocket fuel? Is that now outside of the EOS?
It's still part of EOS Worldwide, but we have done a couple of things differently. So we have an asynchronous platform. It's actually, you're welcome to see it. It's called the EOS Academy that's been completely redone. Mark's played an important role in that. So you can still access all of the content, the videos, Mark Winter's pieces and all of that online. And then we still do have some of our events for Visionary Masterclass, Integrator Masterclass. Most of those are being done now virtually, other than the week of the EOS conference held in the United States. So we've just changed some of the format to make it align better with what works for our implementer community, candidly.
Okay, thanks for that. And the other question was, how is life now having a board of private equity?
Well, life has been good.
We're able to come here.
We're here, yes, we're here, so it's good. We are candidly in the process of going through this, selecting an investment banker right now. And so we anticipate 2026 investment that will be coming, and we're looking for the rightful long-term steward of the business, is how we're referring to it now, such that they really believe in the essence of EOS and want to maintain what EOS is. So Mark and I stand in the gap to make that a reality. Whether it happens next year, I don't know. That's the goal.
Good luck.
Yeah. Oh, there's a hand back here.
Hello. I just want to say firstly, thank you for sharing your story, because as an integrator myself and having gone through sort of similar problems, it's just refreshing to hear that you yourselves also experienced this, but you've been prepared to share it. And it's also interesting to see how you've taken that approach of stripping back to basics. So I was just wondering, would you mind sharing too a bit more about what your kind of 5-year vision is and how you've actually shaped that since going through this journey too?
Repeat that last sentence.
If you mind sharing a bit of insight into your 5-year vision, for your,
5-year vision.
for your VTO, and how this sort of journey has helped shape that.
We really don't do it by 5-year. We do 3-year picture. But Mark, talk a little bit about the vision.
Sure. Our core target is 100,000 companies running on EOS with an EOS implementer by 2035. And we're just shy of 32,000 right now. And so as we double down back on our core focus and what we do better than anyone else in the world, developing master EOS implementers, really that's a quantification of doing our core focus, which is 100,000 companies with an implementer. And so that's what we're using to ask our question: what activities will we do that moves us closer to 100,000 companies? And that then, of course, shapes our marketing strategy with implementers. Now, we do market to end user clients, companies 10 to 250, but our core marketing strategy is about implementers. And ultimately, most of the implementer community are former clients. So 80% or so come from former clients who are running on EOS. So there's probably, my guess, 15 more implementers here somewhere within the next 5 years. So that really then breaks down our 3-year picture, and we're walking the halls of that business. But ultimately, it is that 100,000 companies with an implementer.
And Mark, we are at time.
We are.
We are. We're over. Yes. So here's the back to the basics if anyone didn't already get it. And then, Mark, your capacity for excellence is inversely proportional to the number of your commitments, as just a closing comment there. And here's the QR codes to connect with us both. And it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.